Hi, I'm Marcus. I thought family meant unconditional support, shared burdens, love that didn't keep score. Instead, on a humid Tuesday evening in August, my parents left a note on the kitchen counter. Your car has been sold. Don't make this difficult. No discussion. No warning. Just 8 words that severed 30 years of sacrifice. They thought I'd explode. Beg, plead, fight for what was mine. But I didn't react. Not immediately. I stayed silent for exactly 72 hours, and in that silence I dismantled everything they'd built on my back piece, by careful piece. Before we dive in, what time are you listening to this? And where are you? Drop a comment below. We'd love to hear your story too, because some betrayals don't break you, they reveal who you've always been. I pulled into the familiar gravel driveway of my childhood home in suburban Detroit, the late summer heat still radiating off the cracked asphalt even as the sun dipped low. The air was thick with humidity, and the smell of cut grass from the neighbors' yards. My 2018 Honda Civic. The car I'd bought myself 3 years ago after saving every penny from overtime shifts sat cooling in the driveway, ticking softly as the engine settled. I grabbed the takeout bags from the passenger seat. Thai food from the place downtown that Mom claimed was too expensive, but always requested when I offered to bring dinner. $27 that would go unmentioned, unacknowledged, just like the hundreds of other small sacrifices that kept this household running. The house felt different the moment I stepped inside. It wasn't anything obvious. The same faded floral wallpaper in the entrance, the same creaky third step on the stairs, the same lingering smell of Dad's cigarettes despite Mom's constant complaints. But there was something in the air, a tension that made the hair on my neck stand up. Marcus, that you... Dad's voice carried from the living room, but he didn't get up. Never did anymore, not since his back surgery 2 years ago. The surgery I'd paid for. The recovery time I'd covered by working double shifts while still managing to keep their electricity on. Yeah, brought dinner, I called back, heading to the kitchen. Mom stood at the sink, her back to me, shoulders rigid. She didn't turn around, just kept washing the same plate over and over. Smells expensive, she said, her voice flat. I set the bags on the counter, biting back the response that wanted to crawl up my throat. Everything smelled expensive to people who expected others to pay for it. It's just Thai. Got your pad CEW extra spicy. She finally turned, and something in her face made my stomach drop. Her eyes wouldn't meet mine, skating over my shoulder, the wall, anywhere but my face. Your father and I need to talk to you after dinner. The words hung in the air like a threat. I'd heard that tone before when they told me I needed to start contributing more to the household at 18, when they suggested I skip college to work full-time, when they asked me to co-sign on their refinanced mortgage. Each conversation another link in the chain they'd wrapped around me so gradually I hadn't noticed until I could barely breathe. Dinner was silent except for the scrape of forks against plates and the drone of the news in the background. Dad sat at the head of the table, picking at his food with the disinterest of someone who had more important things on his mind. Mom pushed noodles around her plate, taking small bites and chewing like each one hurt. I tried twice to start a conversation about work, about the weather, about anything, but the words died in the thick air between us. They were waiting for something, and I was the only one who didn't know what. Finally, Dad set down his fork with a decisive clink. He reached into his shirt pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper, sliding it across the table toward me. The movement was practiced, rehearsed. They'd planned this. I unfolded it slowly, my hands steady even as my pulse picked up. 8 words in Mom's careful handwriting. Your car has been sold. Don't make this difficult. I read it 3 times before the words actually registered. Not, we need to talk about selling your car. Not, we're having financial troubles. Just a done deal delivered like a court summons over pad thai. What is this? My voice came out calmer than I felt. Dad leaned back in his chair, the wood creaking under his weight. We needed the money. You understand? The house needs repairs, your mother's medical bills. He waved a hand vaguely like the details didn't matter. My car, I said slowly, that I bought. That's in my name, that I pay insurance on. Don't be dramatic. Mom finally spoke, her voice sharp. You live here rent-free. We all make sacrifices. Rent-free. As if I hadn't paid their mortgage for the last 8 months when Dad's disability checks came up short. As if I hadn't covered every utility bill since I turned 21. As if my entire adult life hadn't been one long sacrifice at the altar of their financial irresponsibility. Who did you sell it to? I asked, surprised by how steady my voice remained. That's not your concern, Dad said. The money's already allocated. Your sister needs help with her new apartment and Mia. The name fell from my lips like a stone. Of course. My younger sister, the golden child who could do no wrong despite dropping out of 3 different colleges and burning through every opportunity handed to her. You gave her my car money for an apartment. She's starting fresh, Mom said defensively. She needs our support. And I don't. The question hung between us unanswered because we all knew the truth. I was the responsible one, the stable one, the one who would always come through no matter how much they took. I didn't need support because I'd learned to stand without it. I folded the note carefully and placed it in my pocket. Then I stood pushing my chair back with deliberate control. Thank you for dinner, I said, though I'd barely touched my food. Where are you going? Mom's voice pitched higher. Marcus, we need to discuss. No, I said quietly. We don't. I walked upstairs to my room, the same room I'd had since I was 7, with its faded baseball wallpaper and creaky floorboards. Everything looked exactly as I'd left it that morning, but it all felt foreign now, like props in a play I was no longer performing in. I sat on my bed and pulled out my phone, scrolling through my banking app. The car payment I'd made 3 days ago stared back at me. The insurance payment scheduled for next week. The registration I'd just renewed. All for a car that apparently no longer belonged to me. But I didn't call the police. I didn't scream or throw things or demand answers. Instead, I opened my laptop and began making a list. Every bill I paid. Every automatic payment linked to my accounts. Every financial thread that connected me to this house and the people in it. If they wanted to play this game, I'd show them what happened when their safety net decided to stop catching them. The night stretched long and quiet. From downstairs, I could hear the muffled sound of the TV and occasional footsteps. They were waiting for me to come down to rage and fight, and ultimately forgive like I always did. But I stayed in my room, fingers flying over my keyboard, methodically documenting years of financial support. By 3 a.m., I had everything organized: bank statements showing mortgage payments, utility bills in my name, medical expenses I'd covered, grocery receipts, home repairs. The numbers were staggering, over $73,000 in the last 5 years alone. And that didn't include the smaller things, the daily sacrifices that death by 1,000 cuts. I closed my laptop and lay back on my childhood bed, staring at the ceiling where glow-in-the-dark stars still clung from when I was 10. Tomorrow they'd expect me to go to work, come home, and pretend nothing had changed. They'd expect me to adapt, to accept, to continue being the foundation they built their comfortable lives on. They'd miscalculated. Dawn came gray and humid through my window. I hadn't slept, but I wasn't tired. There was something clarifying about betrayal. It burned away all the fog of obligation and guilt, leaving only clear, cold purpose. I dressed quietly, mechanically. Jeans, t-shirt, sneakers. Nothing special. Today wasn't about making statements with clothes. It was about making them with actions. Downstairs, the coffee maker gurgled its familiar morning song. Mom sat at the kitchen table in her robe, scrolling through her phone like any other day. She looked up when I entered, a flicker of uncertainty crossing her face before settling back into practiced indifference. "Coffee's fresh," she said, not quite meeting my eyes. "Thanks." I poured a cup black and leaned against the counter. The morning news droned from the living room where Dad was already installed in his recliner. About last night, Mom started, but I held up a hand. Which towing company? I asked calmly. She blinked. What? The car. Which towing company did you use? I need to get my things out of it. Oh. She shifted uncomfortably. Rodriguez Auto. But Marcus, the sale is final. Your sister already put a deposit on her place. I nodded, taking a sip of coffee. I understand. Her shoulders relaxed slightly at my calm acceptance. This was what she expected: Marcus the peacemaker, Marcus the responsible one, Marcus who never made waves. I knew you'd understand. Family helps family. Right. I rinsed my mug and set it in the dish drainer. I'm going to get my things, then work. Will you be home for dinner? Sure. The lie came easily. I wouldn't be home for dinner. I wouldn't be home at all. But she didn't need to know that yet. Rodriguez Auto was a 20-minute walk in the already oppressive morning heat. I knew the place, a sprawling lot full of cars in various states of disrepair surrounded by chain link topped with razor wire. My Civic sat near the entrance, looking small and vulnerable among the trucks and SUVs. Help you? The man at the desk barely looked up from his newspaper. That's my car, I said, pointing through the grimy window. The silver Civic. I need to get my belongings out of it. He glanced at his paperwork. Says here it's sold. Can't let you. I pulled out my registration and insurance papers. It's in my name. My parents had no legal right to sell it, so either you let me get my things or I call the police and report it stolen. That got his attention. He studied the papers, then me, then sighed. 10 minutes. Don't touch nothing else. I emptied the car methodically. Registration and insurance from the glove box, phone charger, sunglasses. The emergency cash I kept under the floor mat, $300 they hadn't found. Work parking pass. Every trace of myself removed and placed in a plastic bag. Shame, the guy said as I finished. Good car. Reliable. Yeah, I agreed. It was. I called in sick to work from the parking lot, then ordered an Uber. Not home to the bank. The branch manager, Mrs. Chen, knew me by name. I'd been coming here since I opened my first savings account at 16. She smiled when she saw me, but it faded when she registered my expression. How can I help you today, Marcus? I need to make some changes to my accounts. Over the next hour, I systematically severed every financial connection. The joint checking account my mother had insisted on, for emergencies, closed, funds transferred to a new individual account. The savings account with my father listed as beneficiary updated to remove him. Every automatic payment for the house canceled. Electric bill, water, gas, internet, cable, home security system. Mom's cell phone plan that I'd added her to for the family discount. Dad's prescription delivery service, the lawn care service they'd guilt me into starting after Dad's surgery. One by one, I canceled them all, effective immediately. That's quite a few changes, Mrs. Chen said carefully. Is everything all right? Just some overdue housekeeping, I said. Next, stop the phone store. I removed both parents from my cell phone plan. They'd figure it out when their phones stopped working in about 6 hours. Then the insurance company, where I canceled the homeowner's policy I'd been paying on their house since their credit tanked. By noon, I'd unraveled 5 years of financial entanglement in less than 4 hours. I got lunch at a small cafe downtown, sitting outside despite the heat. My phone had been silent all morning. They thought I was at work. Thought they had until evening to deal with whatever reaction I might have. They had no idea the ground was already shifting beneath their feet. The first crack came at 2:17 p.m. Mom called, but I let it go to voicemail. Then Dad. Then Mom again. By 3 p.m., the calls were coming every few minutes. I turned off my phone and walked to the apartment complex I'd looked at online the night before. It wasn't fancy a studio in a converted factory building exposed brick and pipes, one window overlooking the parking lot. But it was clean, available immediately, and most importantly, mine. I can move in today, I asked the property manager. If you've got first, last, and security, you can move in right now, she said. I handed her a check. The money I'd been saving for a vacation I'd never take because there was always some crisis, some emergency, some reason why family needed it more. Well, family had taken their last withdrawal. She handed me the keys, and just like that, I had a home that no one could sell out from under me. I turned my phone back on as I stood in my empty apartment. 43 missed calls, 18 voicemails, 67 text messages. I deleted them all without reading or listening. Then I sent a single message to our family group chat. Utilities are in your name now. I've updated my address with work. My belongings will be picked up tomorrow. This number will be disconnected at midnight. Then I blocked them all. The silence that followed wasn't peaceful. It was the held breath before a storm. But for the first time in my adult life, I wouldn't be the one standing in the rain. The moving company arrived at 7 a.m. sharp the next morning. I'd hired them to pack and remove everything from my room while my parents were at their weekly breakfast with Mia, a standing appointment they never missed because she only graced them with her presence when free food was involved. I supervised from my car a rental nothing fancy parked across the street. The movers were efficient, professional, and done in under an hour. Clothes, books, computer equipment, the small safe where I kept important documents, even the baseball trophies from high school. Everything that made that room mine, erased. My new phone, new number, new plan. Nobody from my old life had it buzzed with an email from work. My boss Janet confirming she'd received my updated contact information and hoping everything was okay. I'd been with the company 7 years, never missed a day until yesterday. She knew something was up. Family emergency, I'd told her. But it's resolved now. By the time my parents returned home, I was already back in my studio unpacking boxes. I'd turned off location sharing, removed them from my emergency contacts, updated my mailing address with every institution that mattered. It was like performing surgery on my own life, carefully extracting every tendril they'd wrapped around me. The extinction burst started around 11 a.m. First came the neighbors. Mrs. Patterson from next door, who I'd helped with groceries every week for 3 years, left a voicemail on my work phone. "Marcus, honey, your mother is beside herself. She says there's been a misunderstanding. Please call home." Then Uncle Ray, who I hadn't heard from since last Christmas. "Boy, what's gotten into you? Your mama's crying her eyes out. Whatever happened, family works it out together." My cousin Deshawn. "Yo, Marcus, your pops is blowing up my phone. Says you went crazy, cut them off." "That ain't you, man. Hit me back." Each message followed the same script: concern, guilt, the insistence that this wasn't like me. They were right. The old Marcus would have caved by now, would have been driving back home with apologies and my checkbook ready. But that Marcus had been bled dry drop by drop until there was nothing left to give. By evening, they'd escalated to social media. Mom posted on Facebook a skill she'd only learned so she could stalk Mia's party photos with a carefully crafted message: "Please pray for our family. Our son has abandoned us in our time of need, leaving us without power or water. We don't understand what we did to deserve this cruelty. We just want our boy back." The comments poured in immediately. Sympathy, shock, condemnation of the ungrateful son who would do such a thing to his parents. People who didn't know I'd been paying their bills since I was 21. People who didn't know about the car or the thousands of dollars or the years of being told I was selfish for wanting to save for my own future. I screenshot everything. Mia's post came next, dripping with performed grief. "Can't believe my own brother would do this to our parents. They gave him everything, and this is how he repays them." Over a car. Some people's true colors really shock you. Interesting how she didn't mention that the car money was sitting in her bank account. Wednesday morning brought a new development. I was reviewing spreadsheets at work when Janet knocked on my cubicle wall. "There's a man here claiming to be your father. Should I call security?" I looked up to see Dad in the lobby, shoulders hunched, playing up the frail old man act he'd perfected for disability evaluators. "I'll handle it," I said. He looked older in the harsh office lighting, or maybe I was just seeing him clearly for the first time. His clothes were wrinkled hair uncombed. The careful presentation Mom usually managed was missing. "Marcus," he started, voice cracking with rehearsed emotion. "Son, please, come home. We can work this out." "No." The single word stopped him mid-reach. He'd been going for the arm grab, the physical manipulation that had worked when I was younger. "Your mother's making herself sick." He tried again. "You know her blood pressure." "Then she should see a doctor," I said evenly. "I'm sure Mia can drive her since she has a car now." His face darkened, the mask slipping. "That's what this is about. The damn car. I'll get you another car." "With what money?" I asked. "With the mortgage payment I won't be making this month, with the electric bill you can't afford. Or were you planning to sell something else of mine?" "You ungrateful." He caught himself glancing around at my coworkers who were definitely not pretending to work anymore. "We raised you, fed you, kept a roof over your head. And I paid you back," I said. $73,000 worth. We're even." I pulled out the folder I'd been carrying since Monday. Copies of every bank statement, every bill, every payment I'd made over the years. I set it on the lobby table between us. "That's the accounting. Show it to whoever you want. Post it on Facebook. Take it to a lawyer. But we're done." He stared at the folder like it might bite him. "This isn't over." "Yes," I said already, turning back to my office. "It is." Security escorted him out 10 minutes later when he wouldn't leave on his own. Janet offered me the rest of the day off, but I declined. Work was normal. Work was safe. Work was where I'd built my actual life while my family had been busy spending it. That night, I sat in my empty studio eating Chinese takeout straight from the container. No dining table yet, just me on the floor, back against the wall, laptop open to apartment furniture sites. My phone. My new phone was blissfully quiet. No guilt trips, no manipulation, no emergencies that required my immediate attention and wallet. Just silence and sesame chicken and the radical possibility of choosing things for myself. I thought about Mom's blood pressure, about Dad's back, about Mia's new apartment she couldn't afford. Then I thought about my car sold without a word, and the note left on the counter like I was nothing more than a tenant who'd overstayed their welcome. The fortune cookie was the generic kind. A journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. I'd taken that step. Now I just had to keep walking. Thursday morning arrived with the kind of spectacular thunderstorm that Detroit summers specialized in, all flash and fury, flooding the streets and turning the sky green-gray. I watched it from my studio window, coffee in hand, feeling the strange disconnect of being warm and dry while chaos raged outside. My work email dinged with a meeting request from HR. "Brief check-in," the subject line read. My stomach tightened. I'd been expecting this. The HR director, Patricia, was professionally sympathetic. "Marcus, we've received some concerning phone calls about your well-being. Your mother contacted us yesterday afternoon, and again this morning. She's quite worried about your mental state." I set my coffee down carefully. "What did she say specifically?" Patricia consulted her notes. "She expressed concern that you're having some kind of breakdown. She mentioned erratic behavior, abandoning family responsibilities, and suggested you might be a danger to yourself." "I see." I pulled out my phone and showed her my bank app. "This is my account history. You can see the payments to their mortgage, utilities, and expenses going back 5 years. This folder, I'd brought it with me everywhere now, contains documentation of over $70,000 in financial support. On Tuesday, they sold my car without my permission and gave the money to my sister. I removed them from my accounts and moved out. That's the breakdown she's referring to. Patricia reviewed the documents, her expression shifting from concern to understanding. I see. And you're feeling free, I said simply. For the first time in my adult life, I'm free. She handed back the folder. I'll make a note in your file about the harassment. If they continue to contact your workplace, we'll involve legal. By lunch, the smear campaign had evolved. My high school friend Terrence texted a screenshot from Instagram. Mia had posted a photo of herself crying, definitely staged. The lighting was too good with a novel-length caption. I never thought I'd have to write this, but my brother has completely cut off our family. Our parents are elderly and disabled, and he's left them without basic necessities. Won't answer calls, won't respond to messages. Just abandon them. My dad can barely walk, and my mom has health issues, but Marcus doesn't care. He's punishing them over some misunderstanding about a car. A car. I'm doing my best to help, but I'm just starting my new job, and can barely afford my own bills. If anyone knows Marcus, please reach out to him. Our parents don't deserve this. The comments were a mix of sympathy and condemnation, but I noticed something interesting, a few pushbacks. Didn't Marcus pay for your nursing school before you dropped out? Why were they selling his car, though? This feels like there's another side to this story. Those comments disappeared within an hour. Mia was curating her narrative carefully. Then came the text from my old phone number. They were using it now, apparently. Mom had figured out how to access my old contacts. This is Marcus's mother. I'm reaching out because we're desperately worried about him. He's cut off all contact and we fear he's having a mental health crisis. If you've heard from him, please let us know he's safe. She sent it to everyone. College friends, co-workers from previous jobs, extended family, my barber, my dentist. People I hadn't spoken to in years were suddenly texting, calling, emailing, checking if I was okay. To each, I sent the same response: I'm fine. My parents sold my car without permission, and I've chosen to establish boundaries. I'm safe, healthy, and employed. Thanks for checking in. Most accepted it. Some pushed, but they're your parents. Those got blocked. Friday afternoon, the extinction burst reached new heights. A welfare check. 2 police officers at my apartment door looking tired and skeptical. Marcus Thompson. That's me. We've had a request to check on your welfare. Your family is concerned you may be experiencing a mental health crisis. I invited them in, offered them water, showed them my work ID, my lease, the documentation of financial abuse. Explained the situation calmly, rationally. So you're not planning to harm yourself or others? The older officer asked, already knowing the answer. No, sir. I'm planning to buy a couch this weekend, maybe a coffee table. They left with handshakes and a warning that filing false welfare reports was a crime. I added the incident report number to my growing file. Saturday morning broke clear and humid. I was assembling an IKEA bed frame when Aunt Carol called. Not my phone, my work phone. The determination was almost admirable. Baby, what is going on? Your mama is at my house right now, crying her eyes out. She says you won't talk to her. Aunt Carol had always been the reasonable one. She'd also borrowed $3,000 2 years ago for her son's bail and never paid it back. But she'd at least said, "Thank you." They sold my car, I said, wrestling with an Allen wrench. Gave the money to Mia. A long pause. Your Honda, the one you bought yourself. That's the one. Lord have mercy. Another pause. And they didn't ask. Left a note, 8 words. I could hear voices in the background. Mom's shrill anxiety, Uncle Ray's rumbling bass. Aunt Carol moved somewhere quieter. Marcus, baby, I know that wasn't right. But family. Helps family. I finished. I know. I've been helping for years. When does it flow the other direction? She didn't have an answer for that. By evening, I'd furnished most of my studio. Nothing fancy: a bed, a small dining table, a second-hand couch from Facebook Marketplace that only smelled slightly of cigarettes. Each piece was mine, chosen by me, paid for with money they couldn't touch. I was hanging curtains when the narrative shifted again. A text from my colleague, Charisse. "Yo, did you see what your sister posted now?" The new post was a masterpiece of manipulation. A GoFundMe page, "Help my disabled parents keep their home." Complete with photos of dad looking frail, mom clutching tissues, and a heartbreaking story of how their estranged son had abandoned them in their time of need. Goal: $5,000. The fucking audacity. I screenshot everything, adding it to my folder. Then I did something I'd been avoiding. I logged into Facebook with a dusty old account I barely used. I didn't argue, I didn't rant. I simply posted, "For those concerned about my parents. They are not elderly. They're 57 and 59. They both receive disability payments. They chose to sell my car without my permission and give the money to my sister. I've simply stopped subsidizing their lifestyle. Here's the math." I uploaded one document, a simple spreadsheet showing 5 years of payments. No emotion, no blame, just numbers. Then I logged off and went back to hanging curtains. My phone exploded within minutes, but I didn't check. I had a home to build, a life to reclaim. Let them rage at the truth. I had better things to do. Sunday morning arrived with the kind of perfect weather that made Detroit summers worth enduring: clear skies, low humidity, a breeze that didn't feel like breathing through a wet towel. I sat on my fire escape with coffee and a book, feeling something I hadn't experienced in years: possibility. The Facebook post had done its work overnight. My cousin Deshawn texted my work phone. "Yo, I had no idea. 73K for real, and they took your car." Then Terrence. "Bro, your mom is losing her mind in the comments. She keeps deleting people who bring up the money." I didn't look. I'd said what I needed to say. The truth was out there now, doing what truth does, making things uncomfortable for people who'd built their comfort on lies. Instead, I did something revolutionary. I enjoyed my Sunday. Farmer's market for vegetables, bookstore for something that wasn't a financial planning guide, lunch at a cafe where nobody knew my name or needed my credit card. It was there, eating a sandwich and reading, that Marcus from my old life finally found me. Not my family, my ex, Vanessa. We'd dated for 2 years until she'd ended it with the cryptic explanation that it wasn't working. She slid into the seat across from me, looking nervous but determined. "Your mom called me," she said without preamble. "Friday night. Crying, begging me to talk sense into you." I marked my page and set the book aside. And I told her she had some nerve. Vanessa's laugh was bitter. "You want to know the real reason I broke up with you?" I waited. "Your mom told me you had a gambling problem. Said you were spending all your money at the casino. That's why you could never afford vacations or nice dinners." She was so concerned, so convincing. She even showed me bank statements, all those cash withdrawals. The withdrawals I'd made to pay their bills in cash because they'd bounced too many checks. The elaborate lie built on the foundation of my generosity. She said if I really loved you, I'd leave, so you'd hit rock bottom and get help. Vanessa continued. And I believed her. I was 24 and stupid, and I believed her. I processed this slowly, another piece clicking into place. "When did you figure out it wasn't true?" "About a year later. Ran into your coworker at a bar. He mentioned how you never went out because you were supporting your parents. Started putting pieces together." She twisted her napkin. "I should have reached out then. I'm sorry." "It wouldn't have changed anything," I said, and meant it. "I wasn't ready to see it then." She nodded, stood to leave, then paused. "For what it's worth. That post you made? My whole timeline is talking about it. People are starting to share their own stories about toxic family. You're not alone in this." After she left, I checked my phone. The GoFundMe was struggling, barely $200 raised, mostly from church friends who probably gave out of obligation. But the comments section had become a battlefield. Someone had screenshot my post before Mom could delete it from her wall and shared it in the comments. Others were adding their own memories. Remember when Marcus fixed my roof after that storm? Said he was just helping out. But I know he paid for materials too. This the same Marcus who tutored my kid in math for free because I couldn't afford help. Didn't he buy new uniforms for the whole youth basketball team that one year? For every comment defending my parents, two more appeared questioning the narrative. The truth was messier than their victim story, and people were starting to notice. Monday morning brought legal threats. A letter slid under my apartment door. They'd found my address somehow. Probably followed me from work. The letterhead was from a strip mall lawyer, the kind who advertised on bus stops. Dear Mr. Thompson, it began. This office represents Dolores and Calvin Thompson in the matter of elder financial abuse. I laughed. Actually laughed, standing in my doorway in boxers and a t-shirt reading legal threats from the people who'd stolen my car. They were claiming I'd induced financial dependence, then maliciously withdrawn support, causing them severe emotional and financial distress. I took photos of every page and emailed them to an actual lawyer, one Janet had recommended. Then I made breakfast and went to work. By lunch, my lawyer had called back. This is nonsense, she said bluntly. They have no case. Michigan law doesn't require adult children to support their parents, and you have extensive documentation of your voluntary contributions. If anything, you have grounds to sue them for conversion of property, the car. What should I do? Nothing. Let them waste money they don't have on legal fees. Meanwhile, document any harassment. Keep building your paper trail. That evening, the story took an unexpected turn. My old neighbor, Mr. Kim, posted in the neighborhood Facebook group. He'd lived next door to my parents for 20 years, watched me grow up, kept his observations to himself. Until now. Since everyone's sharing opinions about the Thompson family situation, let me add some facts. I've watched Marcus cut their grass every week since he was 12. Saw him reshingle their roof in 95-degree heat. Watched him come home from double shifts and immediately start fixing whatever was broken in that house. That boy held that family together with his bare hands while they sat inside complaining about the heat. If he finally got tired of being used, that's not mental illness. That's wisdom. His post got shared. And shared. And shared again. By Tuesday, the narrative had completely shifted. The GoFundMe stalled at $340. Mia's Instagram posts about her abusive brother were getting ratioed by people pointing out the apartment she was living in with car money. Someone found old posts where she'd bragged about never having to work because family takes care of family, while I was pulling 60-hour weeks. I watched it all unfold from a distance like a movie about someone else's life. They'd wanted a public fight, thinking sympathy would be their weapon. They'd forgotten that weapons work both ways, and truth cuts deeper than lies. Wednesday night, I was cooking dinner, actual cooking, not the microwave meals I'd subsisted on while funding their lifestyle, when my phone rang. Unknown number, local area code. Marcus, it's Pastor Williams. I almost hung up. Pastor Williams had officiated at every family event, been Mom's confidant for decades. But something in his voice made me pause. I'm listening. I wanted to apologize, he said, which wasn't what I'd expected. Your mother asked me to call you, try to intervene. But I've been reading the comments, seeing the documentation. I've been enabling this for years, haven't I? Telling you to honor thy father and mother while watching them dishonor you. Yeah, I said simply. You have. I'm sorry. That wasn't Christianity. That was cowardice. He paused. I won't be making that call for her, and I'll be having a different conversation with them about personal responsibility. One by one, their flying monkeys were landing and refusing to take off again. The truth was doing what I never could, forcing them to face themselves. But I knew my parents. They wouldn't go quietly. The extinction burst wasn't over. It was about to get worse. The registered letter arrived Thursday afternoon, delivered to my workplace with the kind of theatrical timing that suggested they'd been watching, waiting for maximum impact. Patricia from HR brought it to my desk personally, her expression carefully neutral. "This came for you. Given recent events, I thought you should see it immediately." I signed for it, noting my hands were steady. "Thanks. And Patricia, you might want to give legal a heads up. This could get messy." She nodded. "We've got your back, Marcus. Your work speaks for itself here." I opened the envelope at my desk, co-workers pretending not to watch. Inside was a formal lawsuit. They were suing me for breach of implied contract, intentional infliction of emotional distress, financial elder abuse, theft of services. Apparently, my free labor had monetary value they were owed, unjust enrichment. The damages sought $150,000. I read it twice, then photographed every page and sent it to my lawyer. Then I went back to my spreadsheets. I had work to do, and their desperation wasn't going to disrupt my life anymore. My lawyer, Diane Chen, called within an hour. "This is even more ridiculous than the threat letter. They're claiming you created a pattern of dependence, then withdrew support maliciously. But Marcus, there's something interesting here. They list specific financial damages, mortgage payments, utility costs, medical bills. They're essentially admitting you paid for everything. So they're suing me for stopping." "Exactly. They've documented their own financial abuse. I'll file a countersuit immediately. Conversion of property for the car fraud, intentional infliction of emotional distress." How much was the car worth? About $15,000. But it's not about the money. I know, but judges like numbers. And speaking of numbers, they claim you owe them rent for the years you lived there. Did you pay rent? I paid everything else? Perfect. Start calculating fair market rent for a single room in that area, then subtract it from what you actually paid. I bet you'll find they owe you. That evening, I did exactly that. Fair market rent for a room in their neighborhood, $500 a month. Times 7 years, $42,000. I'd paid $73,000 in bills, plus the car value. They owed me $46,000 by their own logic. I posted the math on Facebook, no commentary needed. Friday morning brought a new development. Mia showed up at my apartment building, catching me as I left for work. She looked different, designer clothes replaced with normal ones, fresh manicure grown out, the telltale signs of someone whose funding had dried up. "We need to talk," she said. "No, we don't." I kept walking to my car. She followed. "Marcus, please. This is insane. You're destroying our family over a car." I stopped, turned. "Did you cash the check?" "What?" "The check from my car. Did you cash it?" Her silence was answer enough. "Then we have nothing to discuss." "They're going to lose the house," she shrieked, mask finally slipping. "Is that what you want your parents homeless because you're having some kind of midlife crisis? I'm 30, and they're not my responsibility. Family." "Stop." I held up a hand. Family doesn't steal from family. Family doesn't lie about gambling addictions. Family doesn't sell your property and leave you a note. You got what you wanted, my car money. Figure out the rest yourself. I drove away, leaving her standing in the parking lot. In my rearview mirror, I saw her pull out her phone. More performance, more drama. But I was done being her audience. Monday came with the kind of August heat that made the air shimmer. I dressed carefully, my best suit, the one I'd bought for job interviews, not family events. Today was the emergency hearing Diane had managed to fast-track. The courthouse was newer than I'd expected, all glass and clean lines. I arrived early, settling on a bench outside the assigned courtroom. Diane appeared minutes later, all business in navy blue. "They've hired Ronald Hutchins," she said, naming the bus stop lawyer. "He's actually trying to argue elder abuse laws apply here. Judge Martinez is presiding. She's fair but doesn't tolerate nonsense. You ready? I nodded. My parents arrived in a cluster of chaos. Mom clutching Dad's arm like she could barely walk, though I'd seen her Facebook posts about line dancing class just last week. Dad with a cane he didn't need, playing up the disability that never stopped him from his weekend poker games. Mia trailing behind in a dress I recognized one of Mom's court outfits from her own disability hearings. They saw me and stopped. For a moment we just stared at each other across the hallway. Three people who'd raised me, shaped me, used me, and discarded me. I felt nothing. No anger, no sadness, just the distant recognition of strangers wearing familiar faces. All rise. Judge Martinez was younger than I'd expected, with sharp eyes that seemed to catalog everything. She reviewed the filings while we settled in, occasionally making notes. This is a hearing on the plaintiff's motion for emergency financial relief and the defendant's countersuit. Mr. Hutchins, you may begin. Their lawyer stood buttoning his ill-fitting jacket. Your Honor, my clients are elderly disabled individuals who relied on their son's voluntary support for basic necessities. He deliberately created a situation of dependence, then cruelly withdrew all support without warning, leaving them destitute. He painted a picture of me as calculating, cruel, someone who'd positioned himself as essential, then yanked away the foundation. Mom dabbed at her eyes on cue. Dad shifted his cane for emphasis. They've had to rely on charity from their church. Hutchins continued. They're facing foreclosure, utility shutoffs, medical crises. Their son has abandoned them in their time of greatest need. Judge Martinez made notes. And the car? Hutchins faltered slightly. A misunderstanding, Your Honor. They believed it was a family asset. Despite being titled in the defendant's name, despite him making the payments, there was confusion about ownership. I see. Ms. Chen. Diane stood smoothly. Your Honor, I'll be brief. Mr. Thompson has documentation of $73,000 in support over 5 years. His parents sold his car titled solely in his name without permission and gave the proceeds to his sister. When he established boundaries by moving out and ending financial support he was never legally obligated to provide, they launched a campaign of harassment, including false welfare checks, contacting his employer, and public defamation. She submitted our evidence, bank records, the car title screenshots of posts, the welfare check report. Furthermore, Diane continued, if we apply their own logic regarding rent and family obligations, they actually owe Mr. Thompson approximately $46,000. We're prepared to pursue this amount in the countersuit. Judge Martinez reviewed the documents. The courtroom was silent except for the rustle of papers. Mr. Thompson? The judge said suddenly. How old are you? 30, Your Honor. And when did you start financially supporting your parents? 21, Your Honor, when I got my first full-time job. And the car? I bought it 3 years ago, saved for 2 years for the down payment. She nodded, then turned to my parents. Mr. and Mrs. Thompson, do you dispute that your son paid these bills? Mom started to speak, but their lawyer cut her off. No, Your Honor, but do you dispute that the car was titled in his name? No, but did you sell the car? Silence. I'll take that as a yes. Judge Martinez leaned back. I've seen a lot of family disputes in this courtroom. This isn't one of them. This is a clear case of financial exploitation. Mom gasped. Dad's cane clattered to the floor. The plaintiff's motion for emergency relief is denied. The case is dismissed with prejudice. As for the countersuit, I'm inclined to let it proceed. Mr. Thompson has clear grounds for conversion of property regarding the vehicle. Your Honor, Hutchins sputtered. My clients are elderly. They're younger than I am, the judge said dryly, and apparently healthy enough to sell cars that don't belong to them. If they're facing financial hardship now, I suggest they look to the daughter who received the proceeds of that sale. She turned to me. Mr. Thompson, You have no legal obligation to support your parents. That you did so for years speaks to your character. That they repaid you by stealing from you speaks to theirs. The gavel came down. In the hallway, after my parents tried to approach, Diane stepped between us. Any further contact needs to go through my office, she said firmly. Mom was crying real tears this time. Marcus, please, we're your parents. Were, I said quietly. You were my parents. Then you sold my car and left me a note. I walked away, Diane beside me, leaving them in the marble hallway of their own making. So what now? I asked as we reached the parking lot. Now we wait. Either they accept defeat or they escalate. Given what I've seen, I'm betting on escalation. She was right. But for now, I'd won. Not because I'd hurt them, but because I'd finally stopped letting them hurt me. The sun was brutal as we left the courthouse, but I welcomed it. Clean, honest heat. Nothing hidden, nothing false. Just light burning away the shadows they'd tried to trap me in. 3 weeks passed in a blur of surprising normalcy. I worked, furnished my apartment, learned how to cook beyond basic survival meals. My money, previously scattered to everyone else's emergencies, accumulated in my savings account with shocking speed. Turns out when you're not funding 3 other adults' lives, you can actually build something for yourself. The legal aftermath was swift. My parents, faced with the reality of the countersuit and mounting legal bills they couldn't afford, agreed to a settlement. They'd pay me back for the car in installments, money I knew I'd never see, but the legal acknowledgement of what they'd done mattered more than the cash. Mia lasted exactly 1 month in her new apartment before the eviction notice appeared. Without my car money and with no job, she couldn't maintain the facade. She moved back home, the golden child returning to a tarnished throne. The family Facebook posts dried up. The GoFundMe quietly disappeared. The narrative they'd tried to spin unraveled, as truth has a way of doing, leaving them exposed in their own community. Church friends still helped with groceries sometimes, but the automatic sympathy was gone. People knew now. Everyone knew. I learned about it all secondhand through the occasional text from cousins or old neighbors. I'd maintained my boundaries, blocked numbers, stayed blocked. No contact meant no contact. The urge to check, to peek into their chaos, faded with each passing day. October arrived with its perfect Michigan weather, all crisp air and burning leaves. I was making Saturday morning coffee when my new phone rang. Unknown number, but local. Hello? Marcus, it's Mrs. Kim, from next door to your parents. Hi, Mrs. Kim. I'm sorry to bother you, but I thought you should know. There's a for sale sign in their yard. Went up yesterday. I processed this, waiting for some emotion to hit. Guilt, satisfaction, victory. Instead, there was just acknowledgement. Of course they were selling. Without my money, they couldn't maintain the house they'd never bothered to properly care for anyway. Thanks for letting me know, I said. Marcus. She hesitated. I wanted to say, I'm proud of you. It takes courage to save yourself when everyone says you should drown for others. After we hung up, I stood at my window looking out at my new neighborhood. Kids played in the small park across the street. A couple walked their dog. Normal life happening all around me, and I was finally part of it. The next few weeks brought unexpected connections. Colleagues invited me to happy hours I could actually afford to attend. I joined a bowling league, something I'd always wanted to do, but never had time for. Started dating again cautiously, with the hard-won knowledge of what red flags looked like. November's pre-winter chill had settled over the city when I got the call that changed everything. Not from family, from Derek Williams, a name I didn't recognize. Mr. Thompson, I'm with Williams and Associates. We're a property management company. I understand you have extensive experience with home maintenance and repair. The conversation that followed was surreal. They were hiring for a property manager position, someone to oversee maintenance for multiple residential buildings. The pay was double what I made at my current job. How did you hear about me? I asked, Pastor Williams is my uncle. He spoke very highly of your work ethic and integrity. Said you single-handedly maintained a property for years while working full-time. That's exactly the kind of dedication we're looking for. I interviewed the following week. Got the job. Gave notice at my old position. Life moving forward at a pace I'd never imagined possible when I was stuck in that house, pouring everything into a foundation built on sand. The last time I saw them was by accident 3 days before Christmas. I was shopping for my first real Christmas tree, not the artificial one Mom insisted on, because real ones were too messy, when I spotted them across the parking lot of the grocery store. They looked smaller somehow. Older. Mom's careful appearance had slipped hair showing gray at the roots, clothes mismatched. Dad moved slowly, not perform disability, but actual weariness. Mia pushed the cart, her designer clothes replaced with dollar store fashion. They didn't see me. I stood frozen between the rows of evergreens, watching them load generic brands into their beat-up sedan. The car that would probably be repossessed soon, based on the legal notices I'd heard about through the grapevine. For a moment, just a moment, the old guilt stirred. The voice that said I could fix this could swoop in and save them one more time. Then I remembered the note. 8 words that severed 30 years. I picked out my tree, a 6-foot Douglas fir that would fill my apartment with the smell of real Christmas, and loaded it onto my car. My car. That I'd bought. That nobody could sell without my permission. Christmas Eve found me hosting my first holiday gathering. Nothing fancy, just Terrence and his wife Diane stopping by with cookies, a few colleagues who'd become friends. My apartment warm with cooking smells and laughter, the tree glowing in the corner decorated with ornaments I'd chosen myself. You seem different, Terrence said, handing me a beer. Lighter. I am, I said simply. As midnight approached and my guests prepared to leave, I walked out onto my fire escape. The city sparkled below, snow just beginning to fall. Somewhere out there, my parents were spending Christmas in a house they could no longer afford, with a daughter who'd learned too late that she'd killed the golden goose. I felt no satisfaction in their struggle, but I felt no responsibility for it either. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number that had to be them. New phone, same manipulation. Merry Christmas, son. We miss you. I deleted it without reading it twice. Then I went inside to my warm apartment, my chosen family of friends, my life that I'd built dollar by dollar and choice by choice. The tree lights twinkled, casting dancing shadows on the walls. I'd hang a new ornament tomorrow, a small silver key, commemorating my first apartment. My first real home. My first year of freedom. Because that's what this was in the end. Not a story about revenge or vindication or even justice. It was about the radical act of choosing yourself when everyone else says you're selfish for having boundaries. About learning that love isn't measured in dollars given or sacrifices made, but in the mutual respect that says, you matter too. They'd sold my car. Left me 8 words. I'd left them with something far more valuable, the truth about who they really were, when the Bank of Marcus closed for good. And for the first time in my adult life, I was genuinely, completely, peacefully happy. The snow continued to fall, blanketing Detroit in clean white silence. Inside my apartment, warm and safe and mine, I raised a glass to the window, toasting the stranger. I used to be the one who thought family meant letting yourself be consumed. Here's to walking away, I whispered. Here's to driving your own car home. Sometimes the people who are supposed to love us most are the ones who take the most. They count on guilt, on obligation, on the fear that setting boundaries makes you the villain in the family story. But here's what I learned: when someone shows you who they are through their actions, believe them. When they take and take and take, then sell what's yours. Without a second thought, they're telling you exactly what you're worth to them. Have you ever had to choose between family harmony and your own well-being? Did you stay silent to keep the peace, or did you finally say enough? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments. And if you're standing at that crossroads right now, wondering if you're wrong for wanting to save yourself, you're not. You're not selfish. You're not cruel. You're human, and you deserve to be treated like one. Where are you watching from? What time is it where you are? Drop a comment and let's build a community of people who understand that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is walk away. If this story resonated with you, please subscribe for more. Because everyone deserves to tell their truth, especially when it makes others uncomfortable.